President Tinubu's economic reform has helped greatly to stabilize the Nigerian economy. Nigeria reached a turning point in 2024, which is commendation for the Tinubu administration.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Obas Trending Gist. So today we are diving deep into some crucial discussions from the Arise News Morning Show. Our host, Ayomairo Ese, Rufai Oseni and Dr. Abati tackled everything from electoral integrity in Anambra State to the state of Nigeria's economy and its power sector. Dr. Abati even commended President Tinubu's government for stabilizing the economy despite many citizens still feeling the pinch. Well, we'll be breaking down their voices, analyzing the facts, and giving you my critical take on whether these economic strides are truly reaching the common man. So sit back and take a watch.
All right, a number of stories to get through this morning, Rufai. State of the states on one hand, Anambra elections in view. Professor Mupiton speaking, maybe not directly, to voter inducement claims in Anambra State following that Professor Soludo video that's now gone viral. But other stories before us this morning as well, the discos and others. Your take on these stories this morning?
So I'm happy that the NSA, National Security Advisor, is saying that they are going to meet anybody that wants to do anything untoward in this Anambra election, fire for fire, which is a good one. But the question I'd like to ask is, why is it that every by-election in Nigeria, we have close to 30,000 security personnel? They say the same thing. But after the elections, we always see a lot of discrepancies as regards security. Today, they are saying over 24,000 personnel, spread over 5,000 polling units. This would be an outlier. But you see, the thing I know so well about Nigeria is that culture will eat strategy for breakfast. And that's why when Professor Josh Amokpitan is saying now that anybody that tries to induce voters, they will not take it. When the governor of the state announced inducement of voters by saying that those that win certain wards will be given XYZ amount of money, has INEC directly taken it up with the governor? And that's why I said yesterday, what you do speaks so loud I can't hear what you say. I didn't say that, Ralph Waldo Emerson said that. And that's what I'm seeing with Professor Amokpitan. So we are waiting, if Mr. Soludo will really carry out what he said, and the cash will flow as people start to win their unit. And we'll see how many of these vote inducers that they're going to bring to book. We need to look at our election system properly, or else we don't get anywhere. This is your litmus test, Professor. Like I said yesterday, for me, you have started to fail already. Because if you don't nip things in the bud, it's failure in the waiting. And he who fails to plan, plans to fail. If we don't plan to call out people that are talking about voter inducement, and we are planning to fail in arresting the people that induce people with money on election day. My second point this morning is around the state of the state. And good job, budget, and congratulations to the budget team. They've constantly brought out these reports. There were some outliers, like Enugu State, even Anambra State. They showed how well they have done in terms of fiscal discipline. Enugu State, all of a sudden, has become an heaven for raising money. The governor, by a lot of people never gave a chance, is doing so well. From over 30 billion to 37 billion to over 100 billion. He's putting digitization in place. He's now part of the few states in the country that are actually viable, that if they don't get FAC, they should be able to run. But the sad reality is that most states are not viable. About 28 states still need FAC for about 55% of their revenue. And that's why the tax, the man that, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, the man that worked on the tax bill, is saying that poverty still looms large. And despite the fact that these states are getting a lot of money, yes, their revenue on paper must have increased, but how they deploy that revenue has decreased because we forget that the trillions we are giving them is devalued Naira. It's no longer the Naira they had access to years ago. And the cost of doing things have tripled in that Naira terms. because it's also being occasioned by a high level of inflation. So while we are trying to push it to the governors, they are getting a lot of money. Can that money actually get a lot done? No. Ask governors. I've had a chance to talk to some governors. Ask them the cost at which they do road before and the cost at which they are doing the roads now. But that does not say most of them should not work. Because if Enugu can do it, and Enugu can create a miracle, the Enugu miracle, what are the other states they're doing that have that level and that potential? So this state of the test is for us to be able to look inward and look deeply. And as with all the reports coming out, yes, we are off the grey list now. The truth is, let's stop touting this $1 trillion economy. I know it's a buzzword, but I think we've been able to prove with empirical facts that it's not possible in the next 5 years. And we can't grow at that astronomical amount. Even if you do 1,001 rebasing, no, it's not going to happen. But it's a good thing that we're off the grey list now. So a lot more inflows can come, a lot more transactions can come. Yeah, it's a good one. It's another good step. But we are not off the buck yet. So a lot more work needs to be done. The dividends of democracy, we need to see in the lives of people. We can't be saying we are making a lot of government revenue and we can't fund the budget cycle. Another report yesterday came out that despite the fact that they have 2-year concurrent cycles, 2024 and 2025 budget, it's just only 36% that they deploy for spending in the health sector. Out of all the monies earmarked. So this so-called wealth that we claim we're having is not trickling down. And as regards the state of the discourse, it's so easy now for federal government to say, yes, there's time for renewal. Is the government oblivious of the fact that they are owing the discourse money? If the minister of power is saying, no, the discourse are not producing enough, the question is, has government met their own agreements? Since the day government promised that they were going to offset that 4 trillion, what have they done to offset the 4 trillion that they are owing them? Is the money not growing? So government is claiming that, the discos are inefficient. But the question is, the government is owing. And about 70% of the cost is to be able to ensure that they get gas to power their plants. But the government is not paying for all of this. So the discos are in a dire strait this morning. If you want effectiveness, if you want better capitalization of the discos, at least start by paying them what you owe them. Government put aside a bond for the 4 trillion to be able to pay back the debt. The debt management office is saying something entirely different. Madam Joy was here the other day to talk about what the debt management office was saying. So what government is saying is directly different from what the debt management office is saying. The discos do not have their money as we speak.
All right, Dr. Abati.
Okay, ahead of the Anambra gubernatorial elections on Saturday, November 8th, our expectation is that, as has been promised by the new INEC chairman, that the process will be credible, will be free, and will be fair. And we have had this statement coming from the governor of the state saying that Anambra State is ready to deliver. That's a very positive affirmation. Also, from the office of the National Security Advisor, the National Security Advisor saying security will be provided. And also, the chairman of INEC, Professor Amokuiton, saying that vote buying, vote selling will not be tolerated. They've all made the right noises, and we're hoping that that election next week, Saturday, will meet the expectations of Nigerians and also of Anambra, and that it shall be well with Anambra after the election. However, let me look at the point made about vote buying. Section 22 of the Electoral Act of Nigeria 2022 says that if you buy votes or you sell votes, you are liable to 2 years imprisonment or a fine of 500,000 naira or both. We have had similar cases in the past, and INEC is given the powers to prosecute electoral offenders. But where the problem is a conflict you have because of the multiplicity of agencies. You have the police that will say they are doing their investigations. They rarely complete those investigations with regard to electoral offenses. You have ICPC, you have the EFCC getting involved in the matter. The matter goes to the courts, The courts take all the time in the world to prosecute the cases. And at the end of the day, nothing comes out of it. Which is the basis why Professor Yakubu Mahmood, who was INEC chairman before now, and also the present INEC chairman, are saying that we need a dedicated electoral offenses commission that can deal with electoral offenses expeditiously. That bill was tabled in 2022. By May 2025, it has passed second reading. As part of the process of electoral reform, we must further empower INEC to be in the forefront of prosecuting electoral offenders. If electoral offenders, attached as they are to powerful politicians, do not have any strong deterrence, they will continue to get away with it. And Section 22 of the Electoral Act of 2022, which we say we need to reform, will remain, ineffectual, to use a more correct phrase. Now, as for Minister of Power, Adelabu, Minister of Power was speaking yesterday at an energy conference. And two things that he said. He says Nigeria has capacity to generate electricity up to, did he say 19 gigawatts, which is more than megawatts and all of that. But we cannot do that. And then he says that government is going to set a minimum capital adequacy, threshold for the electricity discourse. And three, that any company that does not meet that threshold would have to be kicked out. Now, this is not the first time that Minister of Power will be threatening the discourse. He says the discourse are the problem children within the value chain. But he's wrong on that score. Let's start with that. Because indeed, number one, when the Jonathan administration did this transition, program for electricity, the arrangement was that the discos, the private investors, will be responsible for 60% of funding. Government will be responsible for 40% of the funding in what is more or less a joint venture partnership. But the federal government of Nigeria has always failed to meet up to its own expectations, creating a situation, therefore, since 1960, whereby what we do in the electricity sector is trial and error, with far-reaching consequences, severe consequences for manufacturing sector, for ordinary Nigerians. In some other countries, Doha has a population of about 3 million plus. The actual people of Doha, what you call indigenous, there are 300,000 people. The rest of the population is made up by outsiders. They have electricity 24 hours in Doha. Nigeria is also an oil-producing company. We can't manage gas. We can't manage any resource. So the finger that Adelabu is pointing to discourse, the remaining fingers are pointing to government in terms of its trial and error approach. Two, he said a lot of other things about the Electricity Act of 2023 and what the government has been trying to do to empower the states to also generate and regulate and all of that. Well, how much are we getting in that direction? That is another question. He talked about, discourse, but the problem is with the value chain. How about the transmission companies? How about the generation companies? These discourse distribution companies, they were thoroughly discredited under President Muhammadu Buhari, so that many of these discourse, banks lost confidence in them. And they had the problem of capital and all of that, and the problem of the issue of metering that was introduced. They cannot do it because there is no money. I think that what the minister should do, he offered a very robust response in terms of Electricity Act, in terms of the government paying 4 trillion naira, which is the promise of the Tinubu government. Has anybody collected a fraction of that 4 trillion naira? So it's not enough to blame the discourse. What we need is a complete overhaul. And they've been talking about renewable energy. What is the Nigerian government doing about renewable energy? We have sunshine in abundance. Maybe it is the area of renewable energy taking us off the grid that is so problematic. Maybe that will be the problem. There's no reason why Nigerian people should not have electricity supply. Mr. Yedele was saying, yes, they've done reforms, revenues have gone up in an unprecedented manner, but there is still poverty in the country. Yes, he's stating the obvious empirical truth. With over 63 million people at a point were living under the poverty line in this country. That number has increased. I saw one figure saying 130 people. What Taiwo Yedele is saying is on all fours, with a report in This Day Today coming from Quantu, I think that's their name, Quantu or Quantus Economics. And they are saying that, look, President Tinubu's economic reform has helped greatly to stabilize the Nigerian economy. They said between 2014 and 2023 that Nigeria's economy collapsed. In other words, that report by Quantus Economics was more or less saying that Buhari's 8 years was a period of waste economically, that the economy became prostrate, but that Nigeria reached a turning point in 2024, which is commendation for the Tinubu administration in terms of removal of subsidy, in terms of removal of foreign exchange subsidies, in terms of the many innovations that the Tinubu government has introduced. And they said categorically in that report that now investors are coming back. Foreign direct investors are coming back. Portfolio investments are coming back. The foreign reserve has increased. That under Buhari, foreign reserve went down. They depleted the foreign reserve. Nigeria lost confidence within the international community. But however, which is what I find instructive about the Quantus Economics report, that Nigeria still needs to do a lot more. That this economy must be productive. That productivity is important. That population is going to increase by 2030. In fact, we will reach 280 million by 2080. And that, in other words, Nigeria needs a lot more to do. They, however, recognize that it's not something that the Tinubu government can do in 1 year or 2 years, that Nigeria is a work in progress. But, Oyedele also recognizes that more people are in poverty, and that's what makes this environment painful. Finally, the FATF, there's a background to it. We were on the blacklist of the Financial Action Task Force based in France at the time President Obasanjo assumed office in 1999. It was the Obasanjo government that first started this process of Nigeria becoming a financial destination. We were removed from that blacklist because the Obasanjo administration set up the EFCC, set up the ICPC, and then, the international community restored confidence in Nigeria. But by 2023, again, we had gone back to what they call the grey list, which means that as a Nigerian, you can't transact businesses. Investors no longer trusted Nigeria. We became a country that is more or less a pariah in the international economic system. Kudos to the Tinubu government. Again, the Tinubu administration now, through the combined efforts of the National Security Advisor's Office, the Ministry of Finance, the National Insurance Commission, and other agencies, as Dr. Aniti was saying in a piece that I think I read. Now Nigeria is back there. But Dr. Anita made one important point, which is that, she's the Minister of State for Finance, by the way, which is that, look, the job is not finished. Nigeria now being back in good graces with the FATF is the beginning. Now we have been invited back to the next meeting of the FATF, but we need to do a lot more in terms of improving the integrity of our financial system. Because the people who suffer are the ordinary people of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. If you go to a hotel or anywhere abroad, and you bring out your what do you call it, debit card, credit card. I don't use all these things. It's my wife that carries, cards. They will tell you that, oh, from Nigeria, it's not working. There's always a problem. If you as a Nigerian, you want to open a bank account abroad, they are very suspicious because they think that this is a country of scammers. The senators that are praising the development, FATF now recognizes that. They are part of the problem. Are they not the ones taking money of undisclosed sources to go and buy property abroad? And the international community will be wondering, why do these Nigerian lawmakers always come here to come and buy property? So I agree with Dr. Anite, the Minister of State for Finance, that this is not a finish line. The recognition is important. It is to be celebrated, but this is the beginning, as the Minister says.
All right, what an insightful discussion that was. Rufai Oseni and Dr. Abati certainly didn't hold back, shedding light on some very complex issues facing Nigeria. Let us unpack this further. First, on the Anambra polls and the electoral integrity, Rufai raised a critical question. Why do we see massive security deployment in elections like the 30,000 personnel mentioned, yet still face allegations of voters' inducement and discrepancies after the polls? He pointed to the Anambra governor allegedly announcing inducement for words that deliver certain results, directly questioning why the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, isn't taking direct action. Dr. Abati echoed this, citing Section 22 of the Electoral Act 2022, which prescribes up to 2 years imprisonment or a fine for vote buying. However, they both lamented the historical lack of effectiveness, prosecution of electoral offenders often due to multiplicity of agencies involved in the lengthy court processes. This highlights a glaring gap. Excellent law exists, but their enforcement remains a significant challenge. So, moving on to the state of economy and fiscal discipline, Dr. Abati, referencing Taiwo Oyedele's report, lauded the Tinubu government for stabilizing the economy, pointing to positive indicators like the removal of Nigeria from the FATF grey list and the increased foreign reserve. He argued these are commendable steps towards Nigeria becoming a financial destination. However, Rufai brought a stark dose of reality, highlighting that while states like Anambra and Enugu might show improved fiscal discipline and revenue generation, on paper, with Anambra's revenue reportedly increasing significantly, the value of that revenue has diminished due to the heavily devalued Naira and soaring inflation. He emphasized that the trillions being celebrated are effectively much less, and the cost of projects has tripled. This directly impacts the common Nigerian, with Taiwo Oyedele's reports indicating that poverty still looms large despite fiscal expansion. This clearly shows a critical disconnect between the macroeconomic improvements and the tangible daily struggle of ordinary Nigerians. Then there's the power sector, a perpetual challenge. Rufai strongly criticized the federal government's plan to recapitalize discos, arguing that the government itself owes these companies an estimated 4 trillion naira. He pointed out that about 70% of disco's costs go towards buying gas for power plants, and even the government isn't paying its debt. How can it expect discos to be efficient or recapitalize effectively? This situation, according to Dr. Abati, is a consequence of long-standing trial and error approach in the electricity sector since 1960. Now, from my own perspective, what we've heard today paints a picture of a nation grappling with its foundational system. On one hand, there is a commendable push by the Tinubu administration to implement bold economic reforms. Getting off the FATF grey list is a significant win, signaling improved financial integrity and potentially opening doors for more foreign investments. The reported increase of foreign reserve and renewed investment and renewed investor interests are also positive indicators that the economy is indeed stabilizing at a macro level. However, as Rufai aptly puts it, what you do speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. While the government might be making the right noises and achieving some statistical victories, the harsh reality on the ground for millions of Nigerians is deepening, struggling with poverty made worse by a devalued currency and the rampant inflation. This isn't just about numbers. It's about people's ability to afford food, shelter, and basic necessities. The economic stabilization at the top is clearly not trickling down fast enough, if at all, to alleviate the suffering of the populace. The electoral system and the power sector are equally symptomatic of deep-seated issues. Promises of free and fair elections backed by security forces ring hollow when vote buying persists and offenders are rarely brought to justice. The call for a dedicated Electoral Offences Commission is not just a suggestion, it is a critical necessity to instill confidence and integrity in our democratic process. Similarly, the power sector remains dysfunctional because fundamental issues like government fulfilling its financial obligation to discourse are not being addressed. You can't blame the distribution companies for inefficiency when they are starved of the capital needed to operate and invest. Ultimately, for these reforms to be truly effective and sustainable, the government must bridge the gap between policy and practical impact. We need to see concrete results that improve the daily lives of Nigerians, not just impressive economic figures. It is about ensuring that the benefits of stabilization are felt in every household and that the integrity of our institutions is not just legislated, but actively upheld. Nigeria is a work in progress, yes, but the progress must be tangible and equitable. What are your thoughts on these critical issues? Let me know in the comments below.